Hey y'all, my name's Joe. Just Joe, nothing else. Actually, my mama named me Billy Joe and my daddy's family name was Radon. Yup, just like that there gas what y'all wanna keep out share how's a ferret kills y'all. But when I was a kid in school, having a teacher call me Billy Joe Radon when she took he attendance always made me sound like a redneck. Y'all know what I'm talking about, Billy Joe Radon, like I was named for 4 different guys. Either I had a family proud enough of his menfolk to name me after all them, or my mama was some kinda rune-heeled slut what didn't know who my daddy really was, so she named me after all of them what could have gotten the job done. But you'd be wrong. Mama was a good woman. A God-fearing woman would worked hard to raise me and my 4 brothers up with no help from my daddy. No, don't go thinking that he run off with some trailer park honey and left my mama barefoot and broke with 5 screaming boys. Daddy weren't no fool, he was a pilot, and a damn good one. He was a war hero. A combat fighter. A full bird colonel. Got his wings to fly and his wings to lead, so no bad mouthing my daddy neither. Daddy died in a car accident when the brakes on an ordnance truck failed and crushed his car as he parked at his post. The ordnance didn't blow up, but you know that stuff's mighty heavy, and poor daddy didn't have a chance in the antique Triumph Spitfire he liked to drive to work. Little English roadster, Big Mac truck, heavy load, shitty brake maintenance, and we are living on survivor's benefits. I didn't ditch my given names out of no shame. I did it 'cause I don't talk so fast, and 4 names seemed a waste of time. Not to mention words. Too many wasted words bounce and rune out there in the universe. Somebody's liable to get hurt. So if Bono and all them singing stars can go by one name, and all them soccer stars can get by with one name, then by gum, I can be Joe. Just Joe. Now when Daddy had his accident I was 14. I had to start thinking like the man of the house, so I got me a part-time job picking up round Ben Carter's garage. He didn't pay much, but I did get to help his guys work on cars, and was learnin' a lot. I soon decided I was learnin' more there at the garage than in school. There you go jumpin' to conclusions again. No, I didn't drop out. Well, I did, but not then, not yet. I knew school was important. But the way I saw it, I'd been speaking English petty near all my life and was gettin' along fine. Maybe the Queen of that there England wouldn't like my accent any, but I expect she had no clue how to roast a pig on the grill to a Carolina boy's taste like I cold, so we was even. Live and let live. I also was doin' real good with numbers in school. Real good. Now my success with the numbers was the first reason I started to question my shulin. Ya see, I had this here real petty teacher name of Ms. Eggy. Y'all should know ya pronounce the E on the end, so Eggy rhymes with leggy, and I'll be darned if she wasn't the leggiest woman I ever saw. Ms. Eggy was a young teacher, her first year, and I knew she was closer to my age than she was to most of the other teachers in the school. Now, don't y'all think like that. I had a crush on Ms. Eggy, but there weren't nothing gonna come of it. I knew she could get in big trouble for messin' with a kid, and I didn't want that on my conscience. Get those damn stereotypes out your head. People y'all call rednecks are good hard-workin' folk. The whole redneck label comes 'cause we work so hard outside gettin' things done, not sittin' round some desk all day. Not that there's shame at workin' at a desk either, but that don't mean bein' a redneck is a crime or something shameful. We don't revel in heaven for first names, our mamas aren't all steppin' out the trailer at night to sample the neighbor men, and our daddies ain't all stoopin' the checkout girl down to the Piggly Wiggly. Well, maybe some of them do them things, but I reckon Yankees do that up north in New York and Wisconsin too. One thing y'all might not know about stereotypes is that they can be used to a person's advantage. Watch it happen sometime. Like when y'all are sittin' there at the beach soaking up some sun, and some feller from the beach rentals drops by and asks if you want to rent his umbrellas. Y'all say, no thanks, we have our own. We just can't get them dug down into this here hard-packed Carolina sand. Then, you think, hey, the cabana boy is talking real slow. Y'all assume that means he ain't so bright. So y'all say, hey, your umbrellas stay put real well, how y'all do that? He says no problem, I can set y'all up for $5. You pull out a 5, he takes out his battery-operated drill with the 2-foot-long auger and in 30 seconds has your umbrella set up. You remarket the ingenuity, not knowing we've been doing this for years as those big old plastic umbrella screws y'all use up in New Jersey just don't cut it here. So you pull out another fiver and ask the kid to drill one for your second umbrella, and he does. You thank him, your daughter smiles real cute at him, and he walks back to his little shack smiling cause he has $10 in his pocket that he doesn't have to declare to his boss cause he didn't wrench on nothing, and he knows that his odds are good for dancing the horizontal mambo with your daughter that night after the young folks' social hour at the hotel bar. Meanwhile, you could have rented 2 umbrellas, installed as you like with 2 comfy lounge chairs to boot for the same $10, and not had to carry nothing from your car. Yep, I may talk slow, but it just might be cause I'm a thinking about what I got to say. That's how an advantage can hide in a negative stereotype. I was talking about school, wasn't I? Ms. Eggy, right? Well, I get off track too, deal with it. So I took my shulin with a grain of salt. I never did the work in Ms. Eggy's math class, the number just made sense. You know how after you learn to add, if someone says what's 2 plus 2 you just see the numbers? The answer just pops right up? Well, that's how I did math even into high school. I took geometry, and I just saw the right answer. I got a B+ cause I never showed my work. Proofs? What I care about a proof or a theorem when I already know the answer. If I ain't gonna say all 4 my first names, I sure as hell ain't doing no proof in geometry. And if Ms. Eggy thought keepin' me after class to admonish me was something I saw as an attitude adjustment, she sure had a warped sense of how to punish a kid. Pacing back and forth front of me in those short skirts and heels weren't no detention. There was paradise. And speaking of pears, if I got her real mad at what she called my lackadaisical ways, she would get her dander up and wind up leaning over in front of me at my desk, her long blonde hair spilling down her shoulders, and her blouse billowing open so I could have a full unfettered look at her luscious tatas. Yup, that's what I call punishment. Beat me, baby, it hurts so good. One day she was giving me what fair, and asked me what she had to do to get me to reach my potential in math. Ms. Eggy, y'all doing fine. I told her. I get your worry, but I'm doing real good in math cause y'all such a good teacher. I'll make you a deal. If I can prove you do a fine job with my numbers learning, you have to promise me you'll go to dinner with me. One thing we had learned about Ms. Eggy was she didn't back off from a challenge. We'd seen her stand up to men teachers who were, let's say, less than professional, and we'd seen her stand up for a buddy of mine whose dad was a little mean to his kids when he'd been drinking. So I knew Ms. Eggy would do some of what you call negotiating with me. Didn't expect her to accept the challenge as it was, but she did. She stopped hassling me about showing the damned work, just started giving me B- for not showing work instead of B+, and I kept getting every answer right in spite of mediocre grades. Yup, I got me 100% right on every test, but a grade of B-. Then I signed up for her trigonometry class and spent the next year doing it all again. Then I dropped out. I got the math. I spoke the English. I even learned some Spanish. I learned about that their Marshall Plan and Treaties of Versailles and what feldspar was and how that their prince in Denmark would use to play to reveal his uncle killed his daddy the king because he was boinking his mama the queen. Hey, doesn't that sound like one of them soap opera stories one of them Yankees would write about trailer parks? Maybe. But it done come from the pen of none other than Billy Shakespeare himself. I didn't drop out because I didn't want to learn. I dropped out because I was learning and making money in the garage. Heck, old Ben had me doing things like changing out burnt taillights, adjusting and replacing belts, mounting new tires, and even doing brakes. Course he always supervised my work if it were a safety issue, but I did right by him. I did go back to collect on my deal from Ms. Eggy. Even though I dropped out before I was done with trigonometry, I figured since I was out of school, so it was worth a shot. Just for kicks, I signed up for the big test they give the seniors even though I hadn't had but a year and a half of classes. I failed the real test for not showing work. I think that were a conspiracy. But I bought one of them study guides, and showed Ms. Eggy the sample tests that I had aced. You don't get it, Joe, she told me. Math is about process. You have to show your work, or it is like cheating. Besides, I really can't go to dinner with you. Even though you aren't a student anymore, you are still underage, and my fiancé wouldn't approve very much. Well, weren't that a kick in the chest? Ms. Eggy was not only a Welsher, she was engaged. Guess my ship had sailed. So I learned cars. Then I learned diesel engines. I was reading ever. Thing about mechanics. It was good reading. While I was at the library getting books, I started reading stories too. I found out that there was more to Billy Shakespeare than that Hamlet stuff, and that lots of those writers were pretty good. I read about science. I read about religion. I read history and politics. Wound up dropping out of church and became what CHY'll call a political independent when it was time to vote too, 'cause I decided being told what to do, how to vote and what to believe by big systems were as stupid as showing the work in school. Feller ought to be able to decide which crook running for office sees things closest to his way instead of having to vote a party line because the guy got more money from Hollywood or Wall Street than t'other guy. And religion? Feller ought to be free to read the Lord's word and decide for himself what it means himself. I decided I was gonna be free and easy. And I was gonna get my learnin' in my way. By the time I turned 20, my friends were in college. My brothers, helped by what money I made at Ben's, had flourished, and 2 of them were in college too. Mama died that year. She didn't see my 2 younger brothers graduate, but we knew she was proud of each of us. She told my brother she was leaving me the house, and then told me I was to take care of the family home, so they would always have someplace to go and even bring their families. I promised her I would. She died telling us how proud she was of all 5 of her sons, but she was holding my hand. By the time I was 22, I was Ben's best mechanic. Not Ben Fair, a kid who dropped out at 16 without ever showing his work. When a neighbor asked Ben if we could take a look at the engine on an old crop duster, I figured, how tough can it be? I'd worked on tractors and generators and cars and trucks and buses and even a broke-down conveyor belt motor down T the coupe, and fixed them all. So I found an old manual and fixed it. The engine dummy, not the manual. No big deal, pistons is pistons, you know? Then I met the pilot's daughter. We hit it off big, and right away. She loved that I only had one name to say too. She decided to drop her last name too. Sue Ann Sally Tyler was quite a mouthful too. So she became just Sue Ann. No dipshit, it's one name. Called a contraction, and we love it for names down here. Let's us get more on the name line of a birth certificate. Sue Ann and I were married within a couple of months. Yup, I married the crop duster's daughter. Sounds like the name of a good book. I loved that woman. I loved the baby we had before our first anniversary. By gum, she done threw me 3 kids, all daughters, in the first 2.5 years. I did my best to give them the best, and with me workin' so hard, the garage was doing real well. Sue Ann and I were happier than a couple of calves in a meadow, and spent all our free time kissin' and huggin' and, well, you know. But we decided 3 kids was plenty. After all, I was still watchin' over my brothers who were all still in school. Yup, one was in med school, another in law, one ready to graduate and be a baker of some sort, and the youngest a West Point cadet. And I was driving the whole thing, workin' on cars. A red-necked grease monkey head of the family. Kinda poetic, y'all. Brung a tear to my eye anyways. When I began fabricating my own parts that turned out better than factory equipment, Ben made me a partner. I was regularly working on oddball requests, and done come up with some new ideas what made old gear work better, on everything from irrigation equipment to things around the house. Ben hired more guys. We made more money. Charlie fucked Sue Ann. Yup, the love of my life became a living stereotype. Redneck trailer park trash girl steps out on husband and 3 kids for a night of ecstasy with an older, wealthier man. Charlie was an engineer down at the base. He was the point man for a big defense contractor what built planes and a variety of other devices ranging from ventilation systems to automated security gates. His job was to supervise the high performance of their high-performance products and to train the airmen in the use of everything they provided. Charlie met Sue Ann at the dance club where she and her girls liked to go let their hair down while their men stayed home with the kids. It was a pretty common occurrence round these parts, and we think it is kind of civilized to let our girls out for a night of gossip and fun. Course the girls all show us their appreciation when the night is done by comin' home and jumpin' their guy's bones till he's all wore out. The boys all have similar nights when we bowl, fish, or just sit down at the local bar where we drink and tell lies all night. Nobody gets riled up about it, 'cause we all have a way of watching out for each other, and especially each other's partners. It's a win-win thing. Seems I lost this particular win-win thing though. Charlie won. Sue-Ann won. There's only 2 wins in a win-win situation, and I didn't get me one. That pity well made me the loser of a win-win situation, which is about as big a losers there is. Charlie set his sights on Sue-Ann, and she fell for his lines. By the time he was done flapping his jaw, she'd likely thought he was a god or something. But like I told y'all, we watch out for each other. Her girls circled the wagons, called bullshit on Cheryl's spiel, and shoot him away. Seems he kept trying to get close and wouldn't take no for an answer, so they called in a couple of local boys to teach him respect. Well, he left. But he didn't leave far, he just waited for her outside the club. He approached her out in the lot later when she left, then give her a line about how sincerely sorry he was, wanting to make it up to her. Apparently he made it up right there in the back seat of her car. Then again at the motel across the street a couple of times, then in our driveway when he dropped her home. The confrontation wasn't petty. I was sitting in the darkened living room when she came inside. I had Kenny Rogers on the stereo singing "You Picked a Fine Time to Leave Me, Lucille." It was on repeat. I wanted the atmosphere to be guilt-filled. We argued, she denied nothing. She was actually proud of what she was doing. Charlie was a great man, not some hillbilly grease monkey, and he could show her and her girls a fine life. With 4 hungry children and a crop on the field. Sing it, Kenny. Long story short, she had decided she wanted the bright lights, big city scenario he could deliver within a year when he expected to become a divisional manager in his company. He needed a beautiful wife who could manage his big house in the suburbs and give him a family. He was fine with my girls going along so she didn't have to give up her babies. He was dating a couple women looking for the perfect choice, and she was ready to trade up. I've had some bad times and lived through some sad times. Amazing how fast everything can fall apart. I had divorce papers served the next day. I was hit with a restraining order keeping me out of my own house, and could only see my little girls weekends. The letter suggested I get me a lawyer. Y'all ever imagine me working through a lawyer? But this time the hutton won't heal. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. You think if I wrote Kenny he'd tape the song for me singing Sue instead of Lucille? Nah, that'd be wrong. I only wish she'd just left me with my home and my 3 children. So I moved out. Didn't agree to a meeting about dividing assets when they wanted. I said I didn't plan to take their deals, and planned to read up on how to handle things myself. Did just that. Plus I had Ben fire me. I didn't plan to give her my money too, and if I weren't making any, I couldn't give her any. If y'all are wondering about my partnership with old Ben, well, there weren't no paper on that. We did it like good southern gentlemen by shaking hands and then drinking a beer together. Luckily, I didn't keep all my savings in the bank, no sir. Kept enough to let me do business, but I tended to keep lots of my savings in a safe spot close at hand. I know I violated the restraining order, but I snuck into the woods back of my house and after some digging made a withdrawal or 2 from the family bank, a buried strong box back by the creek. I bought me a camper with my withdrawal. A 10-year-old Winnebago built to sleep 6. I parked it back on a little piece of property my daddy bought hoping he'd build us a cabin one day. Then I studied law. I didn't go to school, I read just every bit about family law I could find. Ben brung me some work I could do there during the day, and paid me under the table. I didn't need the money, but he was swamped without me working, so it was helping him out. Page 2. Time went by. I learned about divorces. I learned about custody of young UNS. I learned all about the division of assets. You know, that should be all there is to it, dividing the assets. She don't want me no more. She can divide her ass from mine and set it over yonder Charlie's house. All this hoo-ha involving judges and lawyers, and her wanting me to give up my mama and daddy's house for her and her lover to set up house in his Charlie's concubine is just a load of oops. Sorry mama, I almost said a curse. Anyway, then I'm supposed to pay her alimony so he and that Yankee lunkhead can live together on my nickel in my house and doing the deed in my bed. Well, they just got another thing coming to 'em y'all. I weren't born slow, I just speak slow. I mean slowly. See Ms. Eggy, a proper adverb. I done learned my grammar too. I refused to meet anyone connected to the proceedings, and didn't sign or answer any of their fancy letters I had to sign fair. Imagine how that must have got their goat. They paid good money to send an ordinary letter and I still didn't answer. That's probably one of the reasons the whole legal system costs too much. Fair that matter, since whole government is made up of fools would send a $2 letter to be ignored when a 50-cent letter can get ignored just as well as probably the entire reason I pay half my paycheck in taxes. Still, you can't put things off forever, and the day finally come to see the judge. I figured Sue-Ann was gonna show up dressed to kill. Not 'cause she wanted me to see what I'd be missing, or 'cause she wants to distract me. I just know Sue-Ann, and she dresses up anytime she goes out. Today was gonna be her show, so it figured she was gonna dress to be the center of attention. She didn't disappoint. Lordy, that woman looked beautiful. Hair all putty and her face looking like it belonged in one of them soap commercials where everything is clean and bright. It was my show too, though I reckon. I only had one suit. I wore it for our wedding. I wore it to church every Sunday. I wore it to dressy family occasions. I'm wearing it today, I told myself. And I'm wearing that fancy Ralph Lauren tie she bought me 'cause it brings out the blue in my eyes. And I'm wearing that there fancy cologne she bought me 'cause she said it smells like sex in a bottle. I got me a fancy leather portfolio to hold my papers. And I bought me some shiny new shoes. Then I put on her daddy's watch. Her daddy liked me. When we got married, he dropped by my house to say hi. He asked me one more time if I planned to love his little girl and make her happy. When I said I would, he asked me if I truly believed his daughter loved me, and that I'd be happy all my life with her. When I said I did, he told me he was glad, and that he knew his daughter had a good man. Then he took this watch off his wrist and gave it to me. Granddaddy gave me this watch when I married Sue-Ann's mama. He bought it to wear on his wedding day. I don't have any sons, Joe, and this watch needs to be passed on. I could wait for you to give me a grandson, but I'm giving it to you now, because I know you're the best thing that could ever happen to Sue-Ann. I have faith in you, son, more than I have in Sue-Ann. She's flighty boy. She's fickle about everything, and I don't want to see her go bad on you. So watch your back, boy. Keep her interested, and keep her busy so she stays out of trouble. Now take this watch as a symbol of my faith in you. Sue-Ann knew about the watch and what it meant. She would know the suit, the cologne, and everything else. And I wasn't finished yet. I came to play. Our pre-trial hearing was first thing in the morning. Daisy's Cafe was a favorite breakfast spot in town, and no self-respecting citizen ever went near the place in the morning. Since it was right across from the courthouse, I figured Daisy would probably be there in the morning. So I sauntered right in like I owned the place, and while the bells on the doors was still a-jingling I let out with a hearty morning y'all. Where's the prettiest lil' old biscuit chef this side a Charayon? Now don't go thinking that we're anything special, I walked in every day just the same way, flirting up a storm with Daisy Jean Carson, the boss. And she responded the she way she did every day, why you sweet talkin' schmooze, don't think that's gonna get you any special treatment. You come in here wearing that after shave making you smell like some tea I wanna take home and lock up where I can keep you to myself, just to get a free biscuit or two. I may be crazy bout cha boy, but you pay for your biscuits like everyone else. Alright sweetheart, no need to get so mean about it. Since I gots to pay fair I'll only have 6 of them biscuits instead of 7. Gimme a side of bacon with that and I'll take my coffee black. You'll take your coffee like everyone else, with milk and sugar, a la Daisy's. And you ain't having more than 2 biscuits, just like everyone else. I don't want to go explainin' to Sue-Ann why you're gettin' so fat, oh Joe, I'm so sorry. She looked back to Sue-Ann's booth where my lovely ex-wife had her head in her hands. Oh damn, I really put my foot in it this time. Sue-Ann, no. Don't leave on account of my big mouth. I didn't mean to stir up a hornet's nest with y'all, especially today. I let the expression on my face fall, and I turned on the bar stool looking down at my perfect cup of black coffee which Daisy had poured, but not treated with her customary dose of cream and sugar, as Sue-Ann, Good Time Charlie, and some ruddy daddy in a suit what I assumed to be her legal eagle slipped quietly out the door without paying. I'm sure Sue-Ann was totally embarrassed by the exchange, as Daisy's gaffe kinda represented everyone in town's mind that she and I were the perfect couple. To have that voice so perfectly in front of a cafe full of her neighbors and witnessed by Charlie and the legal department of Snap, Crackle and Pop just couldn't have been scripted better. Joe, I'm really sorry. Seems I really upset Sue-Ann pretty bad too. She even left without paying. I think. Daisy. It's just Joe. Joe once. No doubly talking Joe. And before you go and get. Damn it boy, ain't no native of these here parts one don't call by Teely's two names, so you can't be in my place unless I got something to add to Joe. Darlin' then. You can call me Darlin'. Joe Darling has a nice sound. Okay, Joe Darlin' it is. She reached out her hand and placed it on mine. Really Joe, breakfast is on the house. I'm really sorry. Nod Daisy. Here's fair my breakfast, and enough what ought to cover Sue-Ann and her guests too. I can't let you take the hit cause I couldn't control my woman. Besides, this may be the last time I get to buy her a meal. Girl's gone plumb crazy, darlin'. Don't you fret about it though. She's always been a bit loopy, and you're more than just a good customer, I've known you all my life. I care about you. Now I'm gonna tell you a secret. I call you all kinds of crazy things here when we're playing around, with our customer to waitress flirting. But you know how I really think of you? I think of you as the one that got away. Just don't tell Ralphie. He didn't get away, and I plan to keep him. Damn, Ralphie hollered from his spot over on the grill. I was hoping y'all would get together and Joe'd take you off my hands, girl. Then I could get served black coffee in here. Ralph got a chuckle all around. I felt better knowing my friends were pullin' fair me. And most importantly, I had won the first battle of the war at hand. Sue-Ann had her legal beagle from Snap Crackle and Pop plus Good Time Charlie, but I had something more valuable. I had the home field advantage. That and Sue-Ann's daddy's watch. That day's hearing was less formal, and was held in the judge's office. We drew Judge Judy DuPont, no relation to the Judge Judy from the TV. Good morning everyone. Today is a preliminary hearing of the case of Mrs. Sue-Ann Mojo versus her husband Mr. Joe seeking a dissolution of their marriage, sole custody of 3 minor children, and a continuance of a restraining order against Mr. Joe for reasons of physical abuse. Mrs. Mojo seeks possession of the family home in order to have a place to raise the couple 8 children, 75% of the family's financial assets, maintenance payments in the amount of 75% of her husband's salary, and 75% of her husband's retirement accounts. I understand both of you have made unusual arrangements for representation, with Mrs. Mojo contracting out of state counsel and Mr. Joe. But before we deal with that, Joe and Sue-Ann, we've all known each other a long time. I am having great difficulty not breaking into laughter hearing you called Mr. Joe. You changed your name to just Joe. It seems adding the Mr. is at the least disrespectful of your wishes in that process. With your permission, I would like to call you and refer to you in the records by your legal name, Joe. No objections, Your Honor. With your permission, I would prefer to refer to you as Your Honor, just 'cause it seems the right thing to do regardless how you address me. That'll be fine, Joe. Now Sue-Ann, with your husband going by Joe all these years, everyone just knows you as Sue-Ann. Calling you Mrs. Joe sounds as strange as calling him Mr. Joe. And hyphenating Joe with your maiden name doesn't work. It sounds ridiculous for you to be Mrs. Mojo. Would you object to me calling you Sue-Ann? No ma'am. I guess it is a little silly. I'm trying to get used to my new name. I plan to change it back to Sue-Ann Mo when I am divorced. I want my little girls to have a last name. I understand. And I'll see to it that my clerk helps you do that legally. Now let's meet your lawyer. Your Honor, William Evan Clare, of the Boston firm of Lyons, Tiker and Bear representing the plaintiff Mrs. Mojo. Sorry Your Honor, I've been practicing to say that without smiling too hard too. We are representing Sue-Ann, Your Honor. 'Scuse me, Your Honor. Would it be alright if we call this here feller William too? If Mr. Joe and Mrs. Mojo are too silly to let us be serious, then you have to admit Mr. Everclear of the firm of Lions and Tigers and Bears is worth an eye roll too. It got a chuckle from Judge Judy, but Billy Clare wasn't having none of it. Mr. Clare will be fine. I'd prefer to keep a professional deportment. I understand, Mr. Clare. Mr. Clare, are you licensed to practice law in our fair state? Your Honor, I am not. I believe your state liberally grants temporary rights to practice providing a visiting attorney can provide qualifying credentials. I have such credentials here. Your Honor, Joe spoke up. If it matters, I have no objection to Mr. Clare representing my wife. Thank you, Joe, that will save us time. Now, why isn't your lawyer with you today? Will, Your Honor, I don't believe I need one. Joe, a lawyer is prepared to speak for you and help you navigate your way through legal procedures and maneuvering that can be very complicated. I really believe you, SH. We'll contact a lawyer before we proceed. I will grant you a 2-day continuance to do so. I object, Your Honor. Clare fired his first volley. We feel Mr. Joe has had plenty of time to prepare for today and make a decision. He has ignored our requests for meeting, and in fact all attempts at communication. His level of preparedness is his responsibility, and additional time will just reward his inaction. I object too, Your Honor, Joe spoke up too, to the surprise of everyone but Judge DuPont. I knew you would, Joe. Yes, ma'am. I object to being referred to as unprepared. I am very well prepared, and wish to continue. As a matter of fact, as far as I'm concerned, we can finish this meeting and then walk right over to your courtroom and get the real deal going. Not a bit anxious, Joe? No, ma'am. I'm just ready, so if everyone else is too, let's get down to it. But before we do end the preliminaries, I do have a couple of motions to file. Judge DuPont was a bit surprised. I was proposing to file motions, and at the precise moment I should be doing so. I told you I studied law. Just not at a school. Amazing what you can learn by reading. This home field advantage was working so far. Just a moment, Your Honor. Before we even get to motions, it is our duty request that you consider recusing yourself. We recognize that you are quite close to both Joe and Sue Ann, and that such familiarity could lead to a conflict interest. Mr. Clare, there are 2 judges in this county working family court. Our dockets are full. Judge Morgan, the other family court judge, coached Joe in Little League and then again as his high school baseball coach. He is also Sue Ann's cousin. If we brought in a judge from the criminal division, probate, or civil court, I'm afraid you would find similar relationships. This court is very friendly and closely knit. There are no 6 degrees of separation here, it's more like 2. If you don't know someone already, you know someone who knows that person. And before you request it, there will be no change of venue for a family court case. They may not worry about wasting taxpayer dollars up in Boston, but we do here. Besides, the gossip mill around here is fast and far-reaching. I don't think you could go anywhere in our fair state and find a judge who is totally in those dark about this case. Sue Ann, did Joe ever hit you or hurt you? No, ma'am. The room was silent. Judge DuPont was talking fast, like a Yankee. She just slipped that last one in kinda unexpected like. Sue Ann's reaction was quick and honest. I kinda felt proud of my girl. So much for continuing the restraining order. Who told you to say so? Oh, it were my idea, Your Honor. I just thought. Sue Ann, you don't have a mean bone in your body. You're a little flighty sometimes, but you are so sensitive you couldn't hurt a fly. You don't have it in you to hatch a scheme involving violence that would hurt a good man like Joe. And you know he's a good man, don't ya? Sue Ann hung her head. Yes, ma'am. You know how much this hurt Joe, not comin' home and seein' his babies, don't ya? Yes, ma'am. Joe and I have irreconcilable differences, but I don't want him hurt. And my babies cry themselves to sleep every night that they don't get to see their daddy. Who told you to say that, Sue Ann? Again, the judge was quick and unexpected, and before the suit from lions, tigers and bears could say, "Oh my," Sue Ann blurted out, "Charlie. Good time Charlie bout to get the blues," I thought. Seemed like a good time to make my play. Your Honor, I think this is the time for me to make my first petition. I wish to file an action on one Charlie Bennett, aka Good Time Charlie, for alienation of affections. This suit is a class action, ma'am. Since I know Charlie's reputation, I've been checking round, and I have discovered no less than 18 marriages he has broken up. She and Mr. Clare eagerly opened the envelopes containing the briefs in my filing. Joe, this is well written and researched. For someone who hasn't attended a day of law school, it is incredible. Who helped you? Sue-Ann sat up a little straighter and began to curl her hair with a finger. I reckon she was proud of me fair the judge's compliment. Well, your honor knows my little brother is in his second year of law school. He looked it over and said the same as you. He didn't change nothing though, 'cept where I misspelled some of the Latin words. They're kinda mumbo-jumbo to me, so before I take the bar exam, I guess I'd better read up on that some more. Judge DuPont just shook her head and said you make a compelling argument, and I congratulate you. Unfortunately, I will have to disallow it, as there are only 18 plaintiffs and to enter class action you will need at least 40. I knew you'd say that, your honor. But you see, 2 only had time to skim the brief. When you read the brief in detail, you'll find not only the 18 spouses who were injured, there were 48 children who suffered damages as a result of good time Charlie's creepin' round the back doors of the women in this here county. You'll also find the suit names his company, Massachusetts Mechanicals, as a co-defendant, since how he pulled this stunt in his previous job with them in Pensacola, and they knew about it. Oh, ma'am, the brief includes all the paperwork necessary to serve Charlie Bennett. I believe after we conclude this here hearing, you may wish to have the district attorney question Mr. Bennett regarding fraud charges. Now wait a minute. Guess Mr. Clare woke up. Seems he wasn't so concerned about the divorce, but suddenly the need to throw up a shield ruin Charlie and the folks up there in Boston got his attention. This is well beyond the scope of a family law action. We will need time to prepare. And as further hearings on the primary divorce case will set precedents that will have impact on those cases, we respectfully request a continuance. Mr. Clare, you have just alluded to representing both Mr. Bennett and Massachusetts Mechanical in addition to Sue-Ann here. You are correct that this case has implications on Joe's countersuits, and they should be prepared separately. However, today's actions will continue as planned, as I have no reason to recognize you as counsel of record for Mr. Bennett or Massachusetts Mechanical at this time, and I can't do so without them present. I smell fraud in these proceedings. So I am directing my clerk to have a bailiff detain Mr. Bennett pending investigation. Separately, it seems my concern over Joe's preparation earlier would have been better directed at you. I don't know what they taught you at Harvard Law about family practice, but down here 2 important things come first. This is emotional, so you have to be compassionate with your clients and your opponents. Lives are at stake, and that often includes the lives of innocent children. Secondly, you have to know as much as you can about the family you are dissolving. It seems you learn little or nothing about these people. Who is paying your bill for this? She did it again. That there was a trick I needed to remember. Worked like a charm on Sue-Ann, slipping a quick question into a barrage of admonishment. Mr. Clare sat there like a schoolboy waiting fair sister I'm in control to rap his knuckles with a ruler. On her question, he just blurted out, Charlie Bennett. I thought so. She dialed a number and said have a bailiff put Charlie Bennett in holding. Judge Judy didn't mess around. We are gonna take care of these divorce terms right now. Sue-Ann. Sole custody of those kids? Seriously, girl? Ain't no better daddy in the world. Joe, you withholding the money to take care of these girls? Why no, ma'am. When it was cold, I made sure Marlon Locke went out with his oil truck and filled the tank. I stopped in at the Piggly Wiggly and made sure T pay the delivery bills. I had him call me when Sue-Ann made an order. Ah, Sue-Ann piped up. That was awful sweet of you. I wondered why the truck came, but the guy never wanted money. And Joe, I just want to tell you Daisy was right this morning. 'Bout both things. Too many biscuits are bad for you and you do smell good enough to take home, and I think I'd probably rather lock myself up with you rather than be on t'other side of the door. I couldn't help but smile at that. In spite of Charlie Bennett and all the legal rigmarole, here was my lady flirtin' and battin' her iced me in the middle of our divorce hearing. Well, thank you, Sue-Ann. I can't have my girls hungry and cold. And until Judge DuPont slams her little wooden hammer and says I now pronounce you ex-man and wife, that I gots to take care of you. Page 3. As Sue-Ann batted her eyes at me, Judge DuPont asked her, Sue-Ann, how about you let Joe see his kids as often as they see you? Yes, ma'am, I'd like that. Now, Sue-Ann, about your home. You know Joe inherited that, right? Yes, ma'am, T were his mama and daddy's house. You know he has 4 brothers too. Yes, ma'am. You know they inherited it too. They each own as much of it as he does. He lives there 'cause his mama said in her will he had to keep up the house and let his brothers keep Callan at home too. Without Joe running the family and overseeing the house, you could wind up cooking and cleaning for all 4 of them and their families, once they have em. You sure you don't want Joe around for that? Your Honor, I obj. Mr. Clare, in your courts in Massachusetts, do you let the judge order things that are unusual for the sake of keeping a family together? Yes, Your Honor. Well, that's all I'm doing here. I've known these kids since were toddlers, and watched them build something special. I'd like to keep that together. For some reason, Mr. Bennett wants to destroy it. The way I see it, no matter who pays you, you are here to represent Sue-Ann. An answer of yes is likely going to wind up giving you all kinds of pleasant feelings when I fix this. An answer of no is going to convince me you are in on Mr. Bennett's scheme, and I will likely call the bailiff in and you can join Mr. Bennett in holding until I am done here. Then we can investigate what's really going on. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Clare. Sue-Ann, I asked you if you want Joe around the house? Yes, ma'am. I miss Joe, and so do our babies. Sue-Ann, do you know where Joe has been living? Why, yes, ma'am. He got himself a big old camper and parked it down by the creek. Ben fired him, so he fishes all day. I expect he likes that a lot. Sue-Ann, does Joe have a favorite chair at your house? Oh, yes, ma'am. It's a big old leather recliner in the living room. He loves to sit there and watch football while the girls sit in his lap and play. I'll bet it's a sweet sight, Sue-Ann. I'll bet he misses that chair, and all the other things that make your house home. He misses his daughters, he misses sleeping in his bed, he misses the pictures on your wall. Instead, he is in a camper truck. He has to fold out his table to eat and fold the bed down from above the driver's seat to sleep. He's got a thin little mattress, it's always too hot or too cold, he has to drive it someplace to empty the sewer tank and fill it with water. He has to plug it in to have electricity, and is alone all the time. He has a little bitty TV to watch football on, and no comfy recliner to watch it from. And you put him there, Sue-Ann, when you told the police he hit you. Then on top of that you want him to pay for you. You want 75% of his paycheck, 75% of his savings, and 75% of his retirement in the future. And all the time you are giving yourself to Mr. Bennett like he belongs to you. And for what? What did he promise you? He done told me my babies would go to the best schools, wear the best clothes, live in a big house with a big yard and each have their own bedroom, a swimming pool out back and maybe even ponies. I could have me a little red convertible and we'd all live happily ever after. What about Joe, Sue-Ann? Well, I figured he'd move back onto the house after I married Charlie and left. Then I'd make sure our little girls got the best of everything and I'd come home and see Joe for special family times, like Christmas and birthdays and such. Charlie said he travels lots, so it could be almost like nothing was different. I could visit Joe lots, but I had to make sure I brought something back to Charlie every trip. What, like a souvenir? No, he said it would be papers. You see, Joe likes to tinker. He spends all day working in Ben's garage. He's a great mechanic. But he kinda gets these ideas in the middle of the night. He keeps a gadget what records his voice, so if he wakes up at night thinking something he grabs the gadget and says his idea into it. Then later he tries making the gadget he dreams up into a real thing. He has some, what do you call them, it's like a legal thingy what says no one else can say they invented something what Joe invented first. Sue-Ann, are you talking about a patent? Yes, ma'am. That's it. A patent. But Charlie didn't want the things with patents. He said they were no good to him. He needed me to find Joe's new ideas. Things he had made and was testing, but hadn't gotten one of them their patents fair, least not yet. Charlie was very specific as to what I should borrow and show him. Sue-Ann, Judge Dupont sternly intoned, what you have done is illegal. When you said Joe hit you and had your lawyer obtain a restraining order, you broke the law. You can't lie to make police do what you want, they do their job based on the truth. That's also one of the 10 commandments you learned in Sunday school, remember? Thou shalt not bear false witness? Then you promised to take Joe's ideas to Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett most certainly meant to use Joe's good ideas to make money for himself and his company. That's stealing, and promising to help him is called conspiracy to commit a crime. That's against the law too, and I believe you also remember thou shalt not steal as being another commandment. Sue-Ann, have you already had sex with Mr. Bennett? Sue-Ann couldn't say it, but we all knew what that meant. She kinda hung her head. Sue-Ann, think about whatever it was you let Mr. Bennett do to you. Now what if Joe had done those things with another woman? What would you call it? Your Honor, it's not like that. I did it for us, to make our lives better and give the kids the good things in life they couldn't have here. That wasn't my question, Sue-Ann. This is simple. What if Joe had done those things with another woman? What would you call it? He'd be cheatin', Your Honor. And that's what I call what you did with Mr. Bennett, and that's one more commandment, girl, thou shalt not commit adultery. You're not doing very well with the law or with your Sunday school lessons here, young lady. What would your daddy say? Sue-Ann looked sheepishly my way. I had my elbow up on the arm of my chair, so the sleeve of my suit coat slipped down a bit. There it was, all gold and sparkly, the gold watch Sue-Ann's daddy done give me. She remembered his prediction had she couldn't stay true. Things were crumbling fair her bout then. But the judge wasn't done. Joe, what is the other file in your hands? I looked at the judge as calmly as I could. Sue-Ann was hottin' right now, so I asked Judge DuPont if we could take a recess. She shook her head quietly and told me she felt this needed to be finished right now. Mr. Clare looked sick to his stomach or something. I don't think he expected any of this today, and he sure weren't prepared to say nothin'. Ma'am, sorry, Your Honor, this here's a petition for the dissolution of marriage on the grounds of adultery. Do you have proof of your wife's adultery? Yes, ma'am. I keep a voice-activated recorder in my workshop. You see, sometimes when my hands is full I get ideas for new gadgets. Sue-Ann was tellin' y'all about his a little earlier. I keep recorders in my shop at home, on my bench in the garage, on my nightstand by the bed, and in my truck. They turn on automatically when someone gets to talkin'. Well, Charlie and Sue-Ann did their thing on the couch in my shop several times. I think Charlie was as much up to gettin' a look round what I was workin' on as he was up to havin' his way with Sue-Ann. It sounds like he was distracted, and he kept asking questions about my gadgets and patents. The recorder in my home workshop has video too, and things are quite clear. Sue-Ann broke down in tears. Joe, you will need to give Mr. Clare his copy of your divorce petition and a copy of the evidence. No! Screamed Sue-Ann. I don't want copies of me naked gettin' round like that. Please, Your Honor, isn't there another way? Yes, Sue-Ann, you can confess to having an adulterous affair with Mr. Clare, and the evidence will become unnecessary. Claire spoke up. About time he earned some of the money Charlie Bennett done give him. Don't say anything, Sue-Ann. I obj. We done it. It just wasn't Mr. Everclear's day. Anytime he had something to say, the judge either slapped his hand or Sue-Ann ignored him. Now she just blurted out a confession that proved my case like it was a sneeze or something, and I felt kinda sorry for him. I know he thought I was stupid, but that's partly my fault. I let him think that. But he seemed to be a nice enough feller. Didn't mean him no harm. Shoot. Now I started feelin' a little bad for him. Judge DuPont told Sue-Ann and me that she thought counseling might be a good idea. Then she said Sue-Ann might benefit from a little shoe on each other foot. Sue-Ann had to live in my camper for just a week, and not come home where she could see me or my babies. I was told to tell my daughter's mama was workin' for the judge and would come home real soon. The judge also told Sue-Ann it would serve her right if I had some woman come into my house for some happy time, but I said no, I couldn't do that. I was gonna be true until either one of us died or the judge dropped that little wooden hammer sayin' it's official, y'all done bein' married. If we worked things out after that week, it'd be great. If not, there was gonna be 3 months of counseling, meaning we had to go tell our problems to a neutral counselor and try to work it out. If we didn't get her done in 3 months, the divorce would be final. I get my mama's house, but Suan could visit anytime and even take him home every other week. The judge also brought in the DA, who started a criminal investigation into what he called industrial espionage on a grand scale. Turns out they wanted several of my gadgets and thought they could buy the old country boy off real cheap. They also thought they could steal stuff I hadn't patented. Good time Charlie definitely had the blues now, causing he was in some deep doo-doo. She also warned Mr. Everclear again that he should be careful to know his opponents, and something about some Chinaman named Sunny Sue, funny name for a man. Anyway, she told him I had done like good old Sunny Sue when I picked a battlefield where my opponent couldn't win, and then forced him to fight on my terms. Felt putty good to be called as smart as that tree-famous Chinaman, even if he did have a girly name. According to old Mr. Clare, the law firm of Lions and Tigers and Bears, I was chief counsel fair Massachusetts Mechanicals. Seems like lots of folk was teaming up on me about my gadgets. They wasn't nothing so special, just common sense things folks can use. There was a pump and valve system that made my uncle's irrigation system more efficient on his cornfields. There was a brake design that spread heat out during use, so your brakes stopped faster and lasted longer. There was a new propeller design I made for them crop dusters what would boost speed and save fuel. There was maybe 25 more real simple things. Judge DuPont Kaye. DA friend F. hers from the engineering department up at Duke, and says he has connections and may be able to help me make some money on my gadgets. That'd be real nice, having some extra to give my girls them things Mr. Bennett promised Suan. But Ben had promised he'd hire me back soon as this here mess got cleared up, so I'll be back to normal money-wise. Charlie went to jail. He's there for 3 to 6 years. The civil suit took all his money, including proceeds from the sale of houses here, in Pensacola, in Boston, and a big ol' waterside spot in West Palm Beach. The other husbands he done wrong got nice big checks from him and them Massachusetts Yankees too. I think it's fun to call them Massachusetts Yankees on account of they hate the New York Yankees cause of their baseball team. I'm a Braves fan. D'you know one upon a time the Braves was a Boston team too? Ah, there I go getting off track again. Sorry folks. Now where was I? Yeah, I got it. The judge called us in on the final day of the waiting period. It was time to fish or cut bait. After today, we would either be staying married or separate. It was divorce decision day. Suan was very repentant and sorry and all. And said how she was mortified at how hard it were to live in the camper just 1 week, and how he missed her babies. She wanted to make it right. I told her to make it right, she'd have to live in that camper the full 3 months, while I went around seeking my alone time with someone else. No contact with the girls. No help or care from anyone else. In the meantime, I get to party it up and live like she never existed. Only then could she be able to understand how it all hurt, and she couldn't make it up to me unless she understood it. Right? Joe, she said, if it means we can go back to normal after 6 months, I'll do it. I can sacrifice for the man I love, and that's you, baby. You want some other woman for a while to get even? Get even. I ain't gonna lie to you, I won't like it, but I'll be waiting at the end. Oh, just that easy, huh? You think this is just something we can swap? How about this swap then, Jenny Mae Douglas? I'm gonna take up with Jenny Mae Douglas. She's been alone since Roy moved out, and is dying to sink her teeth into a new man. Maybe I'll move her in and we can shack up for 6 months while you fret and worry that I'll like her body better than yours, that she'll do things you won't, and that I'll fall in love with her. She's stacked, you know, and that long black hair is so exotic. It's a risk having your spouse go cattin' around. You willin' to risk me, Suan? Well, Suan was kinda scared. I guess she figured since she won my heart once, she could win it again whenever she liked. Having to watch another woman in her place never figured in the equation. Oh my word. Joe. Baby, what did I do? I always thought this was temporary, and all fair the best? Now you're saying I could lose you forever to someone like Jenny Mae? Baby, I was doing this or our family. I was giving the girls something big. Really, Suan? Let me tell you. Ain't nothin' in no big Yankee city better than what we gots here. I can make the house bigger, but it just means there's more to care for. And clean. And I hate cleaning house. And the swimming pool? Well, it's nice, but you know I kinda prefer taking the boat out on the lake and jumping on in. And what's so bad about the schools here fair the girls? Schools watcha make it. A hard-working student can do right in any school. And a lazy old worm is gonna fail even with the help the fanciest school. Look at that there Mr. Clare and his big ol' Harvard law degree. He didn't do his job and he lost to little ol' me who prepared long and hard. I know, baby, I was so proud of you that day. I love you, Joe. I love our home. I love our girls. You could come home. Live there in 1A my brother's rooms. You're a good mama to our girls, and they need that. They need you. Maybe if we stay close like that, the girls can feel like family. Maybe someday we can become a couple again, but not right now. There's just too much I question. Your Honor, if I vote to finalize the divorce, but stay close to Sue-Ann, can we marry again if we decide later that's a good idea? You sure can, Joe, and I have to say you have a big heart to consider it. Sue-Ann, Joe is leaving the door open, but as of this minute, he is going through with his divorce petition. Sugar, this is your last chance to say something to stop this. I done him wrong, ma'am. I get that. He should divorce me, ma'am. But I'm going to tell you and Joe both right now, I'm not just standing around here. Joe, baby, I'm going to write one of those agreements so when we remarry I can never throw you put of your home or try to take your money again. Mr. Clare, you can that fair me, right? That Clare feller had been mighty quiet there, since me and the judge settled him down the way things go round here back during our hearing. But he looked up with a smile, and nodded yes to Sue-Ann. Yeah, he was all smiles. I guess he likes a happy ending too. Okay then. Joe, I will never let your children be denied and won't stand fair anyone to hold them from me neither. I'm gonna cook, and clean, and do the shopping and the laundry and weed the gardens, and if you decide you need some lovin' I'll do that too. I'll stay out of your way if you date, and if you sleep with Jenny May, why I'll even change the sheets the next day. Baby, once you told me I was your dream girl. But there's just one thing I ask. What's that, Sue-Ann? I want to use your family name with our kids, Joe. If you want to go by just one name, that's fine with me, but I want our babies to be able to sign their name with Radon on the end. A girl's supposed to change her name when she's married, not just add one. And Joe? Yes, sugar? I want to be Sue-Ann Radon. Matter of fact, I want to use all my names, Sue-Ann Betty Joe Radon. I should have had your name all along, and even though we're gonna be divorced soon, I want that name. I earned it. I want the same name as them babies and the same name as the man I'm gonna convince to marry me again should have give me before. And what if I don't agree? I know fair a fact if I can legally change my name back to my maiden name I can hang it to anything I want, so I'll do it anyway. Ain't that right, Judge? It sure is. I thought about it a bit. Seems this whole court thing didn't go as expected for Sue-Ann. Good time, Charlie, Mr. Clare, or anybody else. I got me some money from Charlie and his bosses. It looked like Mr. Clare was re-evaluating his legal eagleness. It looked like Sue-Ann got some reality smack through her thick skull, and I kinda looked like the judge had a couple of amusing days. But the best was Sue-Ann, 'cause it looked like she was back to being the girl I had loved. Your Honor, before you make things final, I have one more offer. Go on, Joe, I have time. That's Joe, in mean Mr. Radon, ma'am. It looks like I have a family to gather up, and maybe using a proper name will help me raise my babies right and remind my wife where she should be spending her quality time. So here's the deal, y'all. It is my final offer. Sue-Ann comes home after spending a month away from us in the RV she thought was so comfy. Mr. Clare prepares them papers she talked about, where if she does divorce me anyway later on, she can't take me fair all I'm worth. Sue-Ann, I hope you're gonna be my dream again, but ya can't get out of this here mess with nothing. People been hurt by that Charlie man of yours, including me and our girls. You spend that month in that RV while I'm living like I ain't married to you. That way when we settle back down, oh you'll know how bad it can be trying to live without your sweetheart. That way, we'll never need to use that paper Mr. Clare's gonna write up. Joe, asked the judge, there is just one thing I don't get. You have been so generous to Sue-Ann in all this. Why a month in the camper? Well, ma'am, it's like this. When I was back in high school, I had a bet with my math teacher. I told her I could learn numbers without having to show my work. She said that was no good cause math was all about the process. So I took her geometry class without ever showing my process. I got me a B-, even though I never got an answer wrong on a test on account I didn't show my work. I took an AP sample test right before I dropped out and got a perfect score. Of course I didn't show that their process. So then I asked Ms. Eggy, she was teacher. I asked her to go out to dinner with me since I had won the bet. She wouldn't go, account of I was too young and she was engaged by then, and her fiancé wouldn't understand. Twarn't T ethical and T weren't proper. But now, I hear Ms. Eggy is divorced, and I'm certainly old enough so I figure it's time for her to pay up. But you know it's summer and she's a teacher and all, so I gotta have time to ask her and set everything up. Right? I figured a month would be just about right to get her done. Page 4. No one said a word. Joe, after all we've been through today, you are concerned with settling a bet that derived from a crush on a high school teacher? You just surprised us all by even considering taking Sue-Ann back. You shock us by setting a whirlwind timetable in generous terms for her to fulfill, and then you delay it a month, for a date? It's just dinner, Your Honor. Sue-Ann, what do you have to say about this? Sue-Ann didn't blink. Why yes ma'am, it's okay. Ms. Eggy is a real nice teacher, and he did win the bet and all. Seems fair after all I done, he should get a night out to settle that old bet. Besides, it would be good fair for TC that he finally learned to show his work, too. I did no such thing. I ain't never showed my work. Why yes you did, sweetheart. I am so proud of you and the way you handled your own case. You had to work hard at that. You did your readin' and your research and you wrote it all up nice and had your work checked by your brother who only fixed some spellin'. That means you looked at a problem, saw the answer and solved the problem, and filed all them papers to show your work. Ms. Eggy will be proud too. Now if you want, you can have her out the house, and I'll come back from the RV and do all the cookin' and clean up. I'll take care of the girls too, so you and she can catch up. Then I'll leave so you won't even know I was there. Ah sugar, you can't do that. I know you'd get jealous. Oh, it would hurt seeing her in my place. I know all about your crush on her, and I know you was over stuff like that when we got married. I believe in you, Joe, and trust you to do what's right. Even though you don't trust me no more cause I gave you good reason, I still have faith in you being a good man. I'm gonna earn your trust back, and the first step is trusting you. Your Honor, use that hammer please, and tell me I'm divorced. I gots to get to work. I gots to fit my ex-husband to become my husband again, and I don't want to waste no more time. After everything settled, life got back to normal. Sue-Ann worked real hard told me to forgive her affair with Charlie. I believed in her own little world she truly believed she was doing it to give our babies the best. The world had to give. She did live in the RV for a month. Didn't like it none and swore to me the rest of my life she was gonna see to it I was perfectly comfy. She's done fine with that, but sometimes I think it all was just an excuse to buy new pillows and furniture. There's pillows everywhere in our houses. Yeah, houses. Good time Charlie went to jail for fraud, so there weren't much left of his assets to get. But that their Massachusetts mechanical had some deep pockets and I pretty near emptied them. They was bought in a hostile takeover by a German engineering firm, who just happened to like my gadgets enough to legally purchase the rights to make 'em. So I got myself rich with the lawsuit and then again with the money from Germany. So I built onto my childhood home and added a gourmet kitchen and a swimming pool and a couple of extra wings for my brothers to visit, and my babies did get the best. They had the fancies Charlie promised Sue-Ann, plus they had the down-home barbecue and swimming holes and campsites in the hills that they would have lost in the city. Ms. Eggy refused to let Sue-Ann cook her special dinner. She didn't think it was a fair way to pay the debt. So she took me and my whole family to Jack House of Prime for a good old feed. Sue-Ann told her about my masquerading as a legal, and before I know it Ms. Eggy has me lined up to do some guest appearances for a professor friend of hers talking about business ethics and all that there's Sunny Sue business of knowing your opponent. Worked out real well, so now I'm doing guest lectures at a couple of colleges and business schools. So it all turned out right for me. But out of all this I want y'all to remember one thing. Don't underestimate folk you don't know. Just 'cause someone don't talk like you, or walk like you, or think like you don't mean they can't walk or talk or think at all. And you just might find yourself fighting a battle why already lost. Y'all have a real nice day now. Year?